Hello, welcome back. Juanita Bynum shook the foundations of the faith community with a public revelation that no one saw coming. Her confrontation with the controversial preacher Gino Jennings wasn't just a spat between two Christian leaders, it was a full-blown expose backed by a trove of documents she claimed had been buried for years. The world was left stunned, asking what those papers held and how they'd been hidden for so long. Bynum, known for her powerful preaching and deep emotional connection with her followers, wasn't just airing opinions, she was dropping receipts that could potentially shift the narrative around one of the most polarizing figures in modern ministry. Gino Jennings had built a reputation as a no-compromise, unapologetically strict preacher whose sermons often called out what he saw as watered-down theology and moral looseness in the church. Many loved him for his boldness. Others found his methods abrasive, his tone harsh, and his teachings divisive. Bynum, on the other hand, while equally passionate, had long been seen as a spiritual nurturer, flawed and outspoken, but always committed to healing and revival. She'd been through public storms before, but had always emerged with a larger following and deeper credibility among those who saw her as a voice for the spiritually wounded. The confrontation didn't come out of nowhere. There had been murmurs for years, tensions between the two ministries, followers throwing shade online, and whispers of private disagreements. But nothing prepared the public for the moment Juanita stepped forward with documents in hand, taking the stage at a major Christian gathering where both leaders were present. The setting itself was symbolic, a crowded auditorium filled with believers, pastors, and media, the perfect stage for a showdown that would be talked about for months, maybe years. What Juanita revealed was nothing short of explosive. The documents, she claimed, were not rumors or gossip, but hard evidence: internal financial statements, emails, contracts, and a letter from a former insider in Jennings' ministry. Some of the financial records pointed to major discrepancies, with millions of dollars supposedly intended for church growth and community programs mysteriously unaccounted for or redirected to unspecified projects. That alone would have been enough to stir suspicion, but Bynum didn't stop there. She exposed emails suggesting deep divisions between her and Jennings, including arguments over theology and leadership tactics. The most chilling moment came when she read portions of a letter allegedly written by a trusted former associate of Jennings, warning about the misuse of spiritual authority and raising red flags about the ministry's direction. Reactions were immediate. Some in the audience gasped. Others pulled out their phones, capturing every second. Live streams went viral. On social media, hashtags exploded as viewers tried to make sense of what they were witnessing. The mood in the room was tense. Then Juanita, in a calm but firm voice, challenged Jennings directly, asking him to step forward and respond not tomorrow, not in a press release, but right then and there, before the very people their ministries claimed to serve. Jennings did not shy away. He walked to the stage, looked out over the sea of shocked faces, and began his reply. He didn't deny the documents existed. He questioned how they were being interpreted and implied that Bynum's timing and delivery were more about spectacle than sincere accountability. Still, he committed to an internal investigation and even welcomed independent auditors to review the finances. His response drew mixed reactions. Some applauded his willingness to be reviewed. Others accused him of sidestepping the real issues. What followed was a storm that swept far beyond the walls of that auditorium. Social media caught fire. On one side, supporters of Bynum flooded the internet with praise, calling her brave, a truth teller, and a spiritual watchdog who dared to say what others wouldn't. They admired her for putting reputation on the line to seek what they saw as justice. On the other side, Jennings' followers mobilized quickly, defending him as a man under attack for preaching hard truths that made people uncomfortable. They argued that the confrontation was more about personal animosity than ministry reform. The digital war grew intense, with each side producing videos, commentaries, and even short documentaries to support their views. But it wasn't just internet drama. Prominent voices in the church world started weighing in. Some pastors called for calm, urging believers to wait for full investigations before taking sides. Others said this moment was a long time coming, a much-needed reckoning for ministries. that had become too powerful and unchecked. Conversations erupted in congregations across the country, some choosing to reevaluate their support for Jennings, others doubling down in their defense of him. What made this different from past controversies was the sheer volume of evidence Juanita had brought forward and her demand for structural change, not just apologies or damage control. Watchdog groups that specialize in monitoring ministry accountability stepped in. They pledged to review Jennings' financial records and investigate the claims in the documents. Faithful Stewardship Network and others launched campaigns to support independent reviews. The message was clear. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a moment of reckoning. Faith communities across denominations were asking harder questions about how ministries handle donations, how much unchecked power leaders should have, and whether spiritual charisma was being used to deflect real issues of transparency. Through all this, both Bynum and Jennings maintained their positions. In interviews, Bynum emphasized that her goal wasn't destruction but healing and integrity. She said the truth was painful but necessary and warned that ignoring these kinds of issues only damages the church in the long run. Jennings remained relatively quiet but continued to suggest that while every ministry has flaws, dragging private matters into public view could do more harm than good. His message to followers was one of unity. Don't let this moment divide us, he urged, suggesting that God's work must continue regardless of personal failures. Still, legal experts began circling. If further financial misconduct was uncovered, there could be audits, investigations, even lawsuits. Church boards affiliated with Jennings' ministry began holding emergency meetings. Some pastors who had previously partnered with him quietly distanced themselves. Others issued public statements, affirming their continued support while calling for full clarity. This wasn't just a celebrity preacher spat anymore, it had real implications for how ministries function and how they are held accountable. In many ways, Juanita's actions ignited a broader movement. Christians who had grown weary of celebrity-driven ministries started speaking out. Churchgoers asked their pastors tougher questions. Discussions about ethical leadership, financial transparency, and board accountability began surfacing in spaces that had once been dominated by spiritual jargon and feel-good sermons. This was different. It was raw. It was real. And it struck at the nerve of what many believers had long felt but hadn't dared to voice.